Well, you've probably said something like this before. Hey, I ran the numbers and I should be fine. Well, what if the math that you're relying on isn't really telling the whole story? Well, today we're going to unpack some of the most common examples of fuzzy math that are in retirement planning and financial planning. And we're going to show you how to spot them before they can cause serious problems in your portfolio. Can't wait to talk about this one with Ryan. I'll grab him and we'll get started. Back again on the Pilot's Advisor. I'm Walter Strolt alongside financial advisor and pilot himself, Ryan Fleming. We call him the Pilot's Advisor, obviously the name of the show as well. And we're talking about fuzzy math on today's episode. But Ryan actually surprised me a little bit before the episode today, folks. I kind of presented this idea to him and he was like, well, I don't know if I want to talk about fuzzy math sabotaging someone's financial future. Sometimes the fuzzy math can be a good thing. And that one took me by surprise a little bit. So I'm interested to see as we go through these, Ryan, exactly why that's the case. And this should be pretty fun.
Yeah, and I think having a basic knowledge of math and some of those big numbers and those financial principles will give us the big picture, give us a wag per se where we're at. But you don't want to be that person just like you said that, well, we should be okay. That's not good. But I actually, when I see this episode and some of the things we're going to talk about, it actually reminds me of flying. And the reason why I say that is you gotta be able to see the big picture. And with flying airplanes, you had to be able to see the big picture. Now, back in the military, we were doing time control stuff to an airdrop or time control stuff to go meet a tanker out over the Atlantic to get gas. So whatever the mission was, there was some time control there. And it always blew my mind that people would not see the bigger picture. Like if we know that we had to take off at 10:30 and we took off at 10:33, why wouldn't you just immediately started flying fast? Because you're behind. Right. But people don't do that. They stick their head down in the box and start hitting numbers and trying to get it to recalculate and then wait to speed up. And I'm like, you just missed the big picture. Right.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
And I think with a lot of flying principles, and maybe I went too deep into the weeds on this with the flying, but most pilots will relate to what I'm talking about. And I think that it's very valuable to have fuzzy math in your head just to know where you're at. Another example of this in the flying world would be that if you're about to get slam dunked. That you're late on the descent, the controllers aren't getting you down, and you're like, hey, we're about to get slam dunked. Well, that takes just basic math, the 3-to-1 rule or whatever you use, but you don't want to be that pilot that you're over there looking at them going, they have no clue we're about to get, dunked here. But we've all been there. So I think this fuzzy math conversation is going to be fun.
Yeah. Sometimes so it sounds like you're saying sometimes you need to be okay with fuzzy math. Like your example of, hey, we're a few minutes behind. I don't need an exact calculation of exactly what mile per hour I need to hit. And you can just go. You just go faster and then we'll figure it out in a couple of more minutes. But for now, I know the problem I need to solve. I need to go a little quicker out of the gate. We'll figure out the exact math a little bit later. But the fuzzy part is just saying, hey, I have enough information to know a course of action. Here, we're going to take it.
Well, and I think it's a generational thing too, because if you look at some of the older school pilots, they had some of that fuzzy math that made them better aviators because the box, the computers didn't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
They were pilots first and like, hey, be a pilot first.
Yeah.
And I think that
cool.
The new generations where, their nose is right in their phone all the time, or same thing with the automation on an airplane. Well, we got to have some of these basic principles and know the fuzzy math of the numbers. And then that'll help us get into retirement a little bit easier.
All right, well, let's look at these individual examples. So what I'll do is read a statement that sounds like maybe it's some fuzzy math. You let us know which side of the equation this is kind of falling on, like good fuzzy math or something to definitely be aware of here, and let's not sabotage our future by kind of following this blindly. The first one is about mutual funds, and the statement might sound something like this. Hey, the mutual funds that I'm invested in have averaged 7% annual growth for the past 5 years, and I'm perfectly happy with that return moving forward.
Well, there's a lot of problems with that one, in my opinion, because there's no guarantees that return is going to be there moving forward.
Past performance can't predict future results. I think it's how all the disclaimers go, right?
Yeah, if we're in an aggressive portfolio over the long term, I could see us getting 8 to 10%. But where people really make the mistake here in the financial world is, and let's take that 7% you talked about. They will go into a compounding interest calculator and say, "Oh, here's my money. I'm going to get 7% every single year." And that's continuously compounding, but the markets don't work that way.
Yeah, in 5 years, I'll have this much, but that's not how it works.
Yeah, you might have a 7% average, but guess what actually happened? You were up 22% this year, then you lost 15%, then it was up 2%, then it went down. And so an average rate of return is definitely, something to look at. But especially the math in retirement, when you're actually taking returns or you're taking income in retirement, now you don't care about an annualized return as much as you care about a consistency of return. You don't want that big fluctuation when you're taking income, because then it really hurts. So just know what we're actually looking at for growth and everything, but you can't make some assumptions that are going to really have you ending up in Washington, D.C. when you're planning on trying to go to New York.
That's right. Exactly. All right. Another statement you might hear. They say I can take 4% out of my portfolio every year without running out of money. So if I just follow that rule, I'll be fine.
I actually don't have a problem with that. I think the 4% safe withdrawal rate it's been used for a long, long time. I think it is relatively conservative. But I think this is where, when you're in the distribution phase of retirement, it's much, much more complicated than that. You got to see, actually continue to do analysis every single year, looking at your tax brackets, thinking about RMDs, or the biggest one that nobody obviously people miss out on taxes and inflation, healthcare costs. But one of the most important things as you enter retirement is sequence of returns risk. Are you going to retire and suddenly it's a 20% down market when you're pulling income? That's going to have a drastic effect on your portfolio. And so I like the 4% safe withdrawal rate as a big, big WAG number, but the details of the environment and where you are in retirement are going to matter a lot more than that. You're going to have to get some analysis. I'm just a guy talking on a podcast, but this is why you want to have a financial advisor, so you can dig into the details.
Which you also happen to be, which is good and helpful. Just to make that clear for anybody new to the audience.
I actually had an email this morning that I think it'd be valuable to share in the podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Go for it.
It was a lady that emailed me, and she's not a client. She's a prospect, but she's like, "Hey, I'm thinking about this, and Fidelity offered me, And she's basically asking me if I thought it was worth it for her to pay Fidelity to manage her portfolio.
Okay.
And, I don't think Fidelity does the best job out there. I mean, I've analyzed a lot of their, portfolios. They're going to put somebody in a bunch of Fidelity funds. But I didn't focus on that. My response was, regardless of what direction you go in, I 100% think that you should go find a financial professional to help you, because you're going to more than get back whatever fee, that you're going to pay. And I think too many pilots, too many people, too many investors focus on the fee that they're going to pay and not realizing that they've done a ton of studies on this. Even, Vanguard did the huge study that everybody talks about. If you're working with a financial advisor, you're going to get 3% on average more return, and that's compounded over all the years, which more than makes up for the fee. And I think a lot of the stuff that they talk about is asset allocation, discipline, just professional knowledge of, retirement planning. But my response was, well, yeah, I definitely think you should hire a professional. And I don't know how I got on that track, Walter, but there I shared that.
Yeah, I'm sure that's another fuzzy math thing that we could have brought up, talking about the fees inside of your portfolio or the cost of working with a financial advisor. So we'll just throw that in as another prep that we had on the list here.
And it is. It's fuzzy math. Am I willing to pay 99 basis points, or am I willing to pay 1% when I'm probably going to get 2 or 3% extra return every single year? Well, yeah, you should take that all day long. Absolutely, You should do that.
I hear a lot of stories too where a financial advisor, pays for him or herself just in not even looking at returns and those kinds of things, but you help somebody avoid one major mistake, it's already paid for itself, 10 times over in some cases. So, one big mistake that you would have made, maybe trying to time the market, maybe something as simple as not having your beneficiary designations properly, filled out. And that gets discovered by working with an advisor. Like those kinds of things that could dramatically change your financial picture or what you wanted to happen, your wishes and goals. Right there pays for itself many, many times over. So
100%.
just like with a lot of other things in life, right? Having that professional guidance can make all the difference.
Well, and setting up a strategy for retirement, it's not just all about, I'm the first one to say that returns matter. Okay. That's why we're here. We're trying to make money. But I see it time and time again where a pilot will look at the math and go, yeah, but I'm going to pay 1% on all this, money. And they're doing the math of how much they'll pay in fees over the next 20 years. And then I'm like, but yes, we just went back and looked at your last 10 years of returns, and we're averaging 4% better return than you every single year, compounded annually. Like you don't get it. This is a simple IQ test, and you're failing.
Attention aviators, when you've spent years in the cockpit managing the complexities of flight, isn't it time you navigated your retirement with the same precision? Introducing retirepilots.com. Right at your touchdown zone on our homepage, there's a beacon flashing, "Get my free toolkit." Click that and you'll be cleared for a direct route to Ryan's retirement toolkit, tailor-made for pilots like you. Inside, you'll find two of his important works, The Pilot's Advisor and Pilots Retire Early. Between these two books, you can decipher the 9 critical decisions when retiring before 65 and discover the 7 lessons to help pilots land safely in retirement. But that's not all. This toolkit is packed with altitude-high value, including extras to get your retirement plans off the runway and light the afterburners on your 401k. Vector on over to retirepilots.com to grab your toolkit, and let's embark on this journey together. Well, let's move to another one, because there's one that kind of works nicely on the heels of the fees conversation and that value and considering the difference maker between having that extra return every year or not. And that's when it comes to taxes. And you'll hear the statement a lot of the time that says, you know what, I'm not really worried about taxes in retirement. I'm going to be in that lower tax bracket anyway, so things will be getting better automatically for me just from that one element alone. And I know that's something you can pick apart very much like the fees for a financial advisor.
I think it's okay to say, I think I could or should be in a lower tax bracket by then. But the problem is we don't know what the tax brackets are going to be. And we have a major problem in this country with the national debt. So how are we going to handle that? So it's okay to think about the possibility of, but I think there's a lot more that goes into it. The other thing that I heard a guy say, and I don't know if this really works for airline pilots, because most airline pilots make a pretty good living and then they retire, and then they're, normally probably in a lower tax bracket than they were during their major working years. But this other advisor said, he goes, why would you ever plan on making less money? Like I said, I don't know if that really works for the pilot case, but as an entrepreneur or a businessman, it makes all the sense in the world. Like, oh, yeah, I'm planning for failure. No, when I'm 55, 60 years old, I'm going to be making a killing. So yeah. I don't know. I thought that was just an interesting perspective.
Or it's like people hesitate to make more money because they'll have to pay more taxes when they make more money. And it's kind of like, well, no, that's still a good problem to have. Like, don't let the fact you're going to pay more taxes keep you from making more money. Even if you're in a higher tax bracket, it's still a good thing.
Yeah, well, and I get that a lot with them not understanding capital gains tax.
Okay.
It's like, well, yeah, but if I invested my money and then I wanted it back, then I'd have to pay taxes. And I go, well, actually, you only have to pay taxes if something really, really good happened. So I hope you have to pay $1 million in taxes, because it's only a small cut. Uncle Sam wants his cut, but it's because you allowed your money to work for you. I have a client who he kept talking to his brother. He's like, you need to sit down with Ryan. You really need to get your life in order, because this individual just hadn't done it. And next thing you know, he's married and he's in his 40s and he hasn't got his act together. And his brother knew that. So I ended up having a meeting with this guy, and I got him to get his money to start working for him. Okay. I mean, this guy had just a decent amount of money, but just sitting in cash, losing to inflation. We call that going broke very safely. Wasn't even really investing in retirement accounts. But the conversation that we're having right now is he ended up having to pay taxes. Well, that's because we made you like 15% on your money. Guess what, buddy? When you invest money outside a retirement account, it's a good thing if you're paying some taxes, because guess what? We got all that dividends and interest for you, and now the wheels are starting to go. And it was very interesting to see the reaction in his brain where it was like,
yeah. No, that's awesome. I'm sure you love seeing moments like that, though, right? I mean, those are kind of the fun clients to work with when you can kind of show them this whole area of knowledge and financial planning they didn't know existed.
Yeah. And, I love this job. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. I try to show people principles. I'll try to teach them. I'll try to, and sometimes they don't get it. And it used to make me upset, but I've learned that they have to discover it themselves before they'll really move forward. So different ways of explaining that over time. But I love this job because I truly think that I can change people's lives. If they'll just listen and accept some of the principles and accept some of the discipline, it really is a game changer. And I enjoy that aspect of it for sure.
Well, fantastic. That's a good way to end it, Ryan. Lots of examples of some fuzzy math that people often operate with in retirement. Not always a bad thing. Sometimes it opens the door up for great conversation. We just want to make sure that we're not ending that sentence with, I should be fine. This should work out. We want more certainty in the financial planning process. And that's what Ryan provides to his clients each and every day. So if you're a pilot and you're trying to set up a successful financial future for yourself, you're not working with a financial advisor right now, or you're not working with an advisor who's doing this level of detail in the planning process, looking at all the different components and parts of retirement, of financial planning, that should be something that raises maybe a red flag or an alarm bell. It's a warning light going off in the cockpit that something's wrong or something could be better or better optimized. So reach out, talk to Ryan about your situation. You can get a customized review of your plan when you order the retirement toolkit by going to retirepilots.com. That's linked in the description of today's show. Click that, order your toolkit, and along with Ryan's books, great information about preparing for retirement and more resources, you're going to get that free portfolio analysis where you can then look at the specifics of your plan with Ryan and talk about areas that do indeed need that improvement and turn this fuzzy math into something a little bit more solid, a little bit more predictable, easy to understand, and it's going to set you up with more certainty in your financial future. Ryan, thanks so much for the help. Great advice on today's show, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Absolutely. Sign up for the free retirement analysis, the portfolio analysis. You don't want to be one of those people that said woulda, coulda, shoulda. And, or I like to think in the flying world is suddenly you got that big red light on you because you're running out of gas and you're not at your destination.
Yep. Not a problem any of us wants. And we can avoid it by checking the gas tank's status before we take off, right? And you can do the same thing with your finances. Check the status now before you get to the end of that destination to retirement. Again, retirepilots.com, your place to go. Linked in the description. For Ryan, I'm Walter. We'll see you next time on The Pilot's Advisor.
Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, investment, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action.